It's your voice, it's your vote, and it all comes down to this. Who'll win the House, who'll control the Senate, and how will the next 3 years shape up? Locally, can Rowan Ramsey hang on to his seat? Will Andrea Broadfoot put some colour into grey? Can Scott Martin come from behind? And how will the other candidates shape the result? Will Labor's Nick Champion fend off a big pool of contenders to hold the seat of Wakefield? And in Broken Hill, will the shift into parks change the Silver City's political fortunes? The campaign is almost done, the promises have been made, now's the time for you to decide.
Australia votes, election 2016. This is Southern Cross News with Tim Hatfield.
Good evening. Well, this time tomorrow the booths will be closed and votes will be being counted, and the pundits predict it could come down to the wire. In our region, all eyes are on who will win the seat of Grey. Port Lincoln local Andrea Broadfoot was the underdog at the start of the campaign, but is now giving current MP Rowan Ramsey a run for his money. We've got full team coverage tonight, and we begin with Madison Stafford in Port Lincoln. Maddie, what's the feeling like there with only one sleep to go?
Well, Tim, everyone seems to be in high spirits here at the moment.
Tonight, the count continues and it's going down to the wire, with a shake-up in preferences leaving everybody guessing. And win or lose, Rowan Ramsey left to lick his wounds after his huge margin is smashed by Andrea Broadfoot.
This is Southern Cross News with Tim Hatfield.
Good evening. Well, wasn't that an interesting weekend? The country left on a knife edge, as is much of our region, with no clear winner yet in the seat of Grey. The vote was all over the shop as the count began, and an electoral commission error saw two-party preferred votes split between the Liberals and Labor, when it instead was clear it was a Liberal versus NXT competition. If we take a look at the figures, we'll bring up the primary vote count, which today stands at almost 80% complete. We can see that despite a big swing against him of over 14%, Rowan Ramsey leads with over 41% of the initial votes. The NXT's Andrea Broadfoot on 28.5% and Labor's Scott Martin on third with 22% of primary votes. And while that's the overall score so far, it's very interesting if we break it up by booths. Down in Port Lincoln, Rowan Ramsey had a good lead in most booths, winning some right out, but in Whyalla he was trounced, and in fact much of the support did go to Labor in the wake of the Steelworks saga there. Further around the Gulf, and you can again see it was a bit all over the place. In Corn, Mr Ramsey managed to poll well, but fell quite short of Miss Broadfoot and Mr Martin in Port Pirie. Now, the all-important two-party figure is a tricky one at the moment. A recount was ordered on Saturday night, and it's only early days with less than 10% of that allocation count completed, but it does so far show a commanding lead for Andrea Broadfoot against Rowan Ramsey on those preferences. So far, she's managed a swing of almost 20%, which is quite remarkable, but as I say, it's early days and there's plenty more preferences to be allocated, and of course postal votes, which many are predicting will favour the Liberals. And I spoke to Andrea Broadfoot from Port Lincoln early today and began by asking if she's ready to call it yet.
No, we're waiting for the process with the Australian Electoral Commission to be completed so that we can see who is determined as the winner.
It could be the end of the week before we have any decisive winner. Is that your understanding as well?
That's our understanding at the moment.
So if you do win the seat and we end up with a hung parliament as being predicted, who would you back rather to actually form government?
We'll be working as a team.
Welcome back. More on the election results now into the seat of Parkes, and as predicted it remained a safe coalition seat despite the redistribution. With over 80% of the vote counted, Mark Coulton and the Nationals managed almost 60% of first preference votes compared to almost 30% for Labor's Kate Stewart. The Greens picked up just over 6% for Mark Parmito. Votes around the Silver City are interesting, however. Kate Stewart won every booth in Broken Hill and in Wilcannia and Menindee, and for the most part she got well over 50%. That didn't translate across the electorate, however, but does send a pretty clear message about Broken Hill's opinion on the coalition. So boiled down to the two-party figures, Mark Coulton is on around 64% for now, Kate Stewart just over 35%. And finally to the seat of Wakefield, where Nick Champion has not only held the seat for Labor but has also managed an overall swing. The primary votes show him with just over 40%. The Liberals' Kathleen Bourne, who you remember was too busy to talk to Southern Cross News last week, she only managed 26%. The NXT candidate Richard Inwood just shy of 20%. And despite a slight drop in his primary vote, Nick Champion managed to swing on preferences with a 7.6% vote, taking him to 61% of the vote share. And Nick Champion joins me now on the phone. Nick Champion, thanks for joining us. You must be very pleased at the result.
Well, look, just full of gratitude to my electors, and no matter how they voted,